Welcome to Grind 365, the podcast. Today, our special guest has maintained longevity in Hollywood over 30 years with at least 100 movies, multiple TV shows, and still making you laugh at comedy events. He helped brought to you Roseanne, True Lies, and the Best Damn Sports Show. He's a recognizable figure, none other than Tom Arnold. How you doing?
Good, buddy. Good. Thank you. It's over 40 years, by the way.
Is it 40 years?
Yeah, I started, the first thing I did, I think, television was 1983. It's a long time.
I'm not trying to age you. uh, let's get into it, man. I just want to talk about your upbringing. First of all, you're looking good. I mean, how you feeling?
I feel good. Feeling good. I'm alive, and I'm a single dad with a 9-year-old and 11-year-old here. So people don't notice, but you and I tried to figure out how to get the flashing lights off that they set up here, and I got them done. So we're doing great. They got a little bit of a respiratory thing, but we're on top of it and doing well. So where do you live? What town?
I live in Spokane, Washington. So we're in Northwest.
Okay, I've been to Spokane, Washington. It's great. And by the way, Spokane, when I was in high school, I had a rock and roll band, of course, and our name was Spokane because we thought that's how you pronounced it, and it sounded like cocaine. So we thought the city was pronounced. I'm from Atomo, Iowa. Spokane, Washington. We're going to take that name, and I still have cards with our, people come out. Spokane.
How'd you discover Spokane?
Well, probably a map.
Oh, okay.
Iowa, you do hear things are different, or I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's Spokane. And then later, there was a couple people from Washington that came over and said, that's not how you pronounce it. And I'm like,
right.
So,
Well, being from Iowa, I seen the nickname, I only want amphetamines.
Was that how it, let me think. Iowa, I only want amphetamines. Yeah. Well, I guess you're probably aware there's a documentary series about my little sister called The Queen of Meth.
Right.
She was the biggest drug dealer in America. And people are like, was it embarrassing having your sister be a drug dealer? And I'm like, not when I was doing drugs, it wasn't embarrassing. It was actually kind of freaking handy. But yeah, that was back in the 80s, factories closed down a lot, including in my hometown. The meat packing plant that I'd worked at for 3 years after high school closed down. They went on strike, and then they broke the union and closed it down. And working class people were, left out of things. There used to be unions and left out, and crystal meth was a perfect drug for this group of people. And then people realized, well, if you do work, this will be like, well, even when I worked at the meatpacking plant, a lot of people did that. And and I think with my sister, if you want, the documentary series is pretty good. It's on the
I definitely watched it. Yeah, I didn't. Well, she grossed over like 200,000 per week or something, is what they're saying.
Yeah, but I do, and I'd say to her, "This is going to end." She had an airplane. She drove around her town with a car that had a dealer license plate, like a new Jaguar. Nobody in Atomo, Iowa, has a foreign car, period, but not a new Jaguar. And she owned all these properties and put her friends up, and they gave up these houses. And that's why nobody would testify against her. It's like the mob, but it's going to come to an end. And I would say that to her. I'd gotten sober, completely sober, clean sober, before this went down. The big arrests. There was 2 of them, and I just knew, because then the government comes in and they take everything except things they don't want that are too expensive, like her 150 quarter horses, and because it's expensive to feed them. So I had a big farm out there, and I go, okay, let me try to do something with these. I'll try to break them and make them Tennessee walkers or something that I can give to kids to strut and everything. And it was a huge pain in the butt. It took a long time to do that, but it's not. And she had to know, okay, this is going to end. I think that the power and also the drug. Like if you saw, my sister never admitted she was a drug addict, but you don't keep doing this, unless you're a drug addict. Like I know from my own experience of being on drugs and booze that you make terrible, terrible choices. Like you weigh things and your ethics are different. And so yeah, I think that's with her. She's living in Ohio now, driving a forklift. I'm proud of her. Married to her 10th giant biker husband, and she has some beers, which but she's doing well, and I hope she keeps doing well.
Well, do you think with it maybe being that she had police in her corner that maybe that's why she got a little too relaxed?
Well, if you our seventh step, our mom was a nut, and you could tell by it goes into my sister and I's childhood, and it's like not ideal. And our mom, the first time we ever did drugs was from our mom giving it to us and booze. And I always knew our mom. She left when I was 4. My sister Lori was 3. My dad raised us. He was great, but I always knew she wasn't a mother. Like Lori, she was Lori's idol. Like, because she'd come over at Christmas drunk and fall into the tree, and my dad would just laugh. He wanted to take the high road, and he genuinely liked her, but he'd laugh. But I knew that's not a mother. I mean, she would say to me, "I'm not maternal. I'll never tell you I love you, but I might tap you on the knee once in a while." Like it's not like Jesus. But my sister worshipped her, so that's really my sister did so great in life. She was a straight A student, great athlete, very popular, and then when she turned 14, she went to live with our mom. And so I'd already been there. I went first because I wanted to do. I'll be honest. I wanted to grow my hair out. I knew there'd be no rules. I was battling with my stepmother. I wanted to grow my hair out. I wanted to drink. I wanted to do drugs. I wanted to do whatever I freaking wanted. So it made sense to me. I know I didn't go over there for maternal support or I went over there because I knew. And I think it was her sixth husband, my sixth stepfather, who was not much older than me. But I went over there knowing what I was getting into, kind of. She came, and then soon after started dating. She's 14. She started dating a 22-year-old she met via my mom. And then my mom's like, wait a minute, I've given you 3 choices. I'm going to have him arrested because he's a pedophile, or you can break up with him, or you can marry him. And then, of course, she's like, you're 14, you're stupid. Like, I will marry him. So my mom drives the 3 of them down to Missouri, where it was legal at the time for a 14-year-old to get married with parental permission. And she made him marry this dude. It's just awful. And the first night he beat her up the night of their wedding. I had to go over there to his place and fight him. I was happy to get her out of there. He cheated on her with a 12-year-old girl. It's an awful story.
Wow.
He ended up dying in a mysterious fire in his own bed that the police didn't solve. But our, small town justice. But our 7th stepfather was the chief of police. And that really was helpful to my sister. First of all, Delmer was his name. His dad's name was Elmer. The police commissioner was Elmer Collier. His name is Delmer Collier. So he hated me. Like he's this big old redneck. He hated me, but he loved my sister because she paid him and all the other police officers. So the DEA guy, who was quite a nice guy, you hear the thing, they couldn't go, hey, we're investigating somebody. They had to do a surprise raid on without the DEA knowing. Without the local. So they had to come in with helicopters and battering rams, and they notified them right when they were doing it. Like, this is a big operation. My sister had a 200-acre farm and had built an underground lab and had a genuine scientist up there making her meth because she's like, I'm going to make the best meth. And she was working with the Mexican mafia at first, which meant sending guys out to the coast here and dealing with them, getting the chemicals, the 55-gallon drums, whatever. And then at one point she went, I'm going to do it. I don't need them. I'm just going to make my own here, and it's going to be the best. And because Ottumwa, Iowa is centrally located halfway across America, close to the interstate freeway, all these bikers that work for her, it was easy to transport the stuff. And so it was successful at that for a while, but then the shit hit the fan, and not only they arrest my sister, who was the number one person, but the people below her. So our town lost a whole generation, where these kids, including my nephew who was 7, my sister and his father left when he was 7. Middle of the night, cops came in, bam, bam, and that they never came back. But when he was an adult, my sister came back out of prison. My brother-in-law died in Fort Leavenworth. Like, one day you're a kid, you're 7, the cops bust out all the doors, hold a gun on you, and then your parents are gone, really forever. That's part of it. So there's a generation of his friends, my nephew's friends, who, what I did for him was I sent him. There's a military academy, so we all raised him, and not a hardcore military academy, but you get a uniform. I think it was in Memphis, Missouri, and I paid his tuition for him to go there and build up his self-esteem. And then he has never done drugs. He's never done drugs. He's married to a nice Jewish girl from Sacramento. They got a baby that's 2 years old. He's never done drugs. He doesn't drink. He's got some anger issues, and he's also a giant. It's like a 400-pound, but I'm very proud of him because a lot of his friends did the same thing that their parents did. And because that makes sense, they do the cycle. And that's why I always want to make sure I didn't do the cycle of my mother. I wanted to stay closer to what my dad did. But it's hard to escape that. And you see kids everywhere dealing with that. So I forget what your question was.
No, you answered it. I mean, and you talk about successful. I mean, what was she making? Was she making money prior to your career?
Oh,
Was she?
yeah. Well, she was making money. When I say 1983, I started doing stand up here and there, maybe HBO, but it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big deal until I moved out in January of 1988 here to write the Roseanne show. Like, Roseanne and I done HBO specials together, which was fun, but really coming out and writing that show and having that show be so successful, producing it, and then eventually acting in it, that's what things. And that was, my sister was already a big drug dealer, and
So she never like invested in your career prior to that, or you never like, hey sis, throw me a couple bucks.
yeah, I think honestly, I think my grandfather and maybe her husband loaned me $5,000 to move out, or maybe 10 to get my shit together out in LA when I moved. I think of that. I mean, she certainly brought everybody to my shows. And then when I hadn't paid him back, this because when I first moved to LA, January of '88, going strong, got a great job, and then there was a writer's strike, and then I was like, holy sh! So I had to travel around, try to find jobs. Everybody in my business did. It was a big writer's strike, and I think I was late on my payment to Floyd, and he's like, "You don't want to? I'll send somebody out there." But I did pay him, and I did appreciate him helping me. My grandfather, who's the tightest human being ever, he died. When he died, he had millions of dollars. He never spent. He's from the Depression. He wore uh, old crappy T-shirts that the guy I mowed his yard gave me. He smoked not Camel cigarettes, generic freaking. Like, he was the tightest he would be, and he had loaned me money, and he did make a speech about, like, he was also in charge of Social Security and welfare for the state of Iowa. Like, he had a job where he saw a lot of different things, but he did make a speech from everybody in his retirement that I was the only person that ever paid him back of all the grandkids, the church, the Theban Methodists. One person, Tommy, paid. I'm like,
Wow.
but yeah. No, I mean, she'd given me drugs, but I was aware, like, I was, we lived, and by then I had a farm on the west side of Ottumwa, and she had one on the east side, and you know, I didn't realize how you know scary her thing got, because from the time I moved to LA, I actually moved to Minneapolis in 1983 because they had comedy clubs, so we weren't quite, we didn't see each other a lot, and I had no idea how big of deal it was until right before, she got busted, and the DEA called me and said, it's happening today. And I'm like, what is? So, this is 1991 or something. And so I wanted, first of all, they wanted her to go to prison for life. And I, I got her a great lawyer. I knew she deserved to be punished, but I thought life was, wanted her to be given a second chance at some point. You got to pay your penalty. And it turned out that way. Her husband went, her husband, because he would not apologize. And there's something, he and I never got along, me and his biker buddies, but there was something a little noble about him, and not turning in everybody around him and saying, I'm just going to die in prison. Like, it's not ideal, but that's what he did. And my sister, of course, did the other way. She's like, screw it. I want to get out of this. I'll turn in everybody above me. And so, yeah. And then, of course, she went back again. But here we are.
In Minneapolis, you had won a comedy stand-up. Is that correct?
I did back in right before I moved to Los Angeles. It was a Midwestern comedy. I don't know what it was, but it was a comedy competition. And you always want to think, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to get better. So the first year I did it, I finished fifth, and there were some really good comedians in it. And then third, and then the last year, I won it. And to me, that was a big deal, and to other people, because people were aware of it. It was funny because there was a cash prize, and I'd owed the club owner more money than that from borrowing it. So I had a check with nothing on it, but I got to pay him off. But it was good for my self-esteem, and it meant something. And so when I moved to LA, I was like, well, I've done everything I can here in the Midwest anyway. So yeah, that was a good thing. I when I was younger, I remember in junior high or whatever you call it, maybe ninth grade, eighth grade, you either played football or you were act in the drama. There was no crossover. And our drama teacher, very sexy woman, especially if you're 14, you're like, holy. And again, I didn't have a mother, so I didn't even know what a woman looked like naked. But she came up and she's like, I think you could do this drama thing too. I think you could act. And I remember looking at her. She had like a low cut thing. Like, I love this one. I'll try it. And so they have competition in Iowa. So I started doing the individual stuff, the speech stuff, the dramatic acting, and they give it's like the Olympics in Iowa. You win, you go to this thing. And I did very, very well all the way on through. And then I won a couple other awards. And I was like, well, this is a good thing. I don't know how to continue. The only thing I knew I could do when I left Iowa was stand up, because they had stand up clubs. So I thought, okay, I'll be a stand up. My ultimate goal originally was to be a stand up comedian, because the only time we ever heard our dad laugh was when there was a Bob Hope special on. Bob Hope was a comedian at, the 70s and 60s. He used to go around to Vietnam or North Korea or wherever and put on these big shows for the troops and bring pretty women and do sort of double entendre jokes, the stuff my dad liked, the old man. And I'd hear him laugh. I said, whatever that Bob Hope does, I'm going to do it. So I think it was 1989. One of the first things I did in LA was a Bob Hope special. And so my dad, this kind of magic, in the same living room, same TV that he used to watch Bob Hope when I was a kid, he's now watching Bob Hope standing next to his child in doing a sketch together. And that's pretty magical. Then Bob Hope was amazing. And he called my dad and signed all this stuff. And I remember thinking, okay, that's my goal. It's over. What now? So I have been very, I did stand up, and then Roseanne started writing stuff for her. And I go, okay, I'm a writer. That's what I'm going to do. And then at one point they said, you got to be on the show, or would you consider being on the show? Okay, I'm an actor. So
it was them that put that, pretty much had you join the show. It wasn't like yourself kind of just jumping on in or anything like that.
No, I mean, Roseanne, because I'd written for her before the show, and I wrote her characters like she do. This guy knows how to write. I wrote jokes that she do Johnny Carson. and that were her character stuff. So she definitely wanted me because we were friends, but we're not a couple then, but we were friends. But she wanted to make sure her show had her voice.
And did you already have a fiance during this time at the?
I've had four wives, I have four ex-wives, and I had four fiancées before that, starting right out of high school. Like I'm
Oh,
always,
wow.
yeah. So my fiance from Minneapolis, I heard from her during the fire just now, but she moved out with me, Denise, and she was great, And I think the youngest at 14 or something, that Iowa Catholic family, or anyway. So she moved out with me. We set up shop, and and I was bad. I was bad. I was using drugs and drinking, and it just became too much for her. And so she said, "I'm out." She stayed on in LA, but said, "I'm out," which is the right thing to do. And then, then Roseanne and I started at some point. Maybe Roseanne came up one day and goes, "Nobody likes either one of us. We should get married." That's basically what I go. That makes sense. Um, but Denise, you
And you
know,
guys go on to what? How about 4 years of marriage together?
yeah, yeah. We met when I was 23, 1983. She was 30. She was not famous, but she was a very good comedian. We worked together in the Midwest. The club owners, like, I was in Denver. I saw this woman. I know you're going to hit it off, and we did. We hit it off after the first show. There's a woman named Liz Winstead was a comedian then, and she created the Daily Show. That's one of her things, and she was the MC that night. And we said, "Liz, can we borrow your car? We're going to run somewhere." And we never brought it back. We went out, Rosanna, partied very hard. And it was fun because then she'd come back to the Midwest every few months or whatever, and we'd go on the road party. It was that kind of friendship. But I also very much respected her comedy and her point of view, and she thought I was funny. And I always tell people, men, we know we're good looking, but if you tell us we're funny, then you got us forever. So there was that. I started writing jokes. She was going on Johnny Carson. 1985 was the first time, and I wrote jokes for her. And I remember sitting back in Minneapolis watching that with my friends, hearing jokes I'd written, and thinking, "Wow, this is incredible! How this is a good feeling." So, 1987, I came out to LA to do her first HBO special, where I played her husband. Ironically, we were not a couple then, and I think her husband at the time I was her fantasy husband, and her husband was her real husband. But they were going through it. And so the 88, I'd be the natural person to come out and write the show. And and then I was able to, I produced the show too. So I got to hire a lot of great writers. So mostly a lot of my friends that were comedians that I knew, this guy is funny. He's got a different point of view. I could teach him how to write a script, like the act one, act two, act three. This, you could teach the form of television a lot easier than you could teach people to be funny, which is kind of impossible. So that's really what I did. And there was a lot of great people.
Is it true you guys like went on a honeymoon in Mexico and the hotel was called up because you were like eating loud or something?
Pretty too loud. Yeah. We had we went to a hotel. They had these cabanas, we rented one, got a nice place. And because anytime we went somewhere, we want to try all the food, and I still got to be careful of that because there'll be a list of desserts. I'm like, which one? Maybe I better try all of them in case this is the last moment of my life or something. And they brought all these plates, and we were very loud. We were very loud anyway. And probably laughing at maybe a plate fell or, definitely eating. And they did. Someone complained. Some other rich person, some other a-hole rich person complained about how loud we were eating. Yeah, that happened. I know Arsenio had just started, and Arsenio Hall would make fun of us. Roseanne hated him. In fact, one day I went over to Paramount to kick his ass. Like, I went there, he called her a beach whale or something. I went in, they let me in the gate. I went to right up to his where he's filming, and he wouldn't come out. I'm like, I was that guy. That's not ideal either. But he wouldn't come out. And then he actually did a statement kings only meet with kings, which is pretty funny. Eventually, we're buddies, and Roseanne and I both went on the show. I've, but in that weird moment, I'm like, I'm gonna go kick his ass, man.
Wow. I mean, do you think eventually Roseanne goes on to be what, the number one show in
Yeah,
America?
pretty fast. It was number one pretty fast, pretty fast. Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about fast. I mean, was you've talked about overcoming addiction. Do you think maybe Hollywood kind of took that up to another level of what you
Well,
were going through?
every day that I wake up, I say, well, I have to be sober, clean and sober today, and that's all I'm not saying it's never forever because I don't, it's a hell of a disease. I put many years together one day at a time, but and it's even more important as a father because soon after the kids are born, I'm like, I may be raising these kids by myself. I mean, sometimes you're in a weird relationship or you're like looking at a person like, holy hell, I'm not the screwed up one. I better be meticulous in my mental health, my sobriety, because I got to be on top of stuff. So, the Hollywood, there are uh, you can't really blame Hollywood because there are a lot of temptations. Back then, it was the Wild West. Back in the '80s, the first time I came out to do the Comedy Store with Sam Kinison and all like it was like I don't know if people were stupid and didn't know that cocaine was addictive. They were saying this is the perfect drug, and and the way people drank and the way we partied, it was just more acceptable and kind of expected. So that influence was for real. And drug dealers love comedy, and comedians love drug dealers. So I'd do a show, have like three different drug dealers there. I'd kind of go behind each other's back, see what people brought. But I have to say this about Hollywood: the sobriety out here is the best in the world. We have more sober people, more sober meetings, more help for people, more compassion. So on the one hand, you have what happened in the '80s, probably everywhere, and you have access to all kinds of stuff. But the other, out of that, there came this growth of support. And so, if you're out here, you make a call, you get help. And I always tell people about Robin Williams. If I called him at 4 a.m. and said so and so's in trouble, he'd be like, "Let's go get him," whether he knew him or not. Like he was that guy. And there are a lot of people like that out here. And so the opportunity to be sober and live and be healthy is very. If you survive, and we talk about I talk about relapse. Like I was 19 years sober. I broke my back, had a motorcycle wreck, had a PCH, and I up to that point, the young guys I sponsored, I noticed young guys were coming in, heroin guys and opioid guys, and I would say to them, "Yeah, I don't get that heroin, opioid. I don't. That's not my thing." I'd say cocaine and alcohol was my thing. I get that. And then I broke my back, and the ambulance came, and the guy's like, "Are you in pain?" I said, "Yes." And he's like, "Not anymore." And gave me a shot of fentanyl. And I remember thinking, "Oh shit, that's what I've been looking for my whole life, this feeling." So a year later, I was about to take my sober cake, my 20 year, that's what we call it. And I realized I'm not sober. I am still on the pain medication from a year ago. I've got to start over. I ate the cake and I started at day one again. Um, relapse is a part of a lot of people's stories, but you want to be aware that you could die next time.
Yeah.
With Chris Farley, who was my buddy, my best man, and he at the very end, he was going to his 17th rehab the next day, and his and he died. In fact, the sex worker that was with him said the last thing he did was jump up and click his heels and say, "This is great," and then fell over backwards. She didn't know he died. She was just like, "I'm going to get out of here." But so, you got to have that awareness. I think because the addiction, you don't care, or you think you're invincible, or you hate yourself so much because you're an addict, and the things that come with that you don't care. Like it's part of it. And I know when Matthew Perry, who was one of our guys, I sense, and I just seen his book, and boy, he put a lot of stuff out in his book, and I know he helped a lot of people. I think he had his own rehab at one time and stuff, but I sensed that something was going on with him again, that he felt he could hide from people, and that he was trying to put everything out there before he died. And so, yeah, that looks like probably what happened. And he also, and I've done this, he became his own doctor. Like, I am so smart. These doctors, these therapists, I got it. I know what I need to be prescribed. And that voice is definitely the addiction voice that wants to kill you. That voice is always in your head. It's quiet if you're working on yourself, but it gets louder and it's trickier and it's evil, and you just got to be aware. There is a voice in my head that wants to kill me. There's a thing, and that's why I also tell people, don't let people shame you. If people, they need to support you, or else they can't be in your life, especially during early sobriety. I said, because you're shaming yourself every moment. I get that. Like this voice, nobody can shame you as much as you do. So avoid that and those people, and and then you have your best chance of success.
Well, I gotta ask you, going back to Roseanne, whose idea was it for her to sing the national anthem at that, the San Diego Padres baseball game?
That was not my idea. Absolutely. In fact, what happens in show business, if you're good at acting on sitcom, writing, uh, stand-up comedy, they'll tell you you're good at everything and you can sing, which is you have a great voice, which is not how God works. She said, "Hey, they want me to sing national anthem at the Dodgers game." I go, "Wow, that's a hard song, because it's my job, and it's a partner's job to protect your the person you love, sometimes from themselves. That's just how it goes." And, so she's telling me this, and I go, "Wow, that is a hard song." And I said, "I think Barbara Streisand pre-records it. It's that hard." It's like, "I want to do it. They say I can do it. Screw it, I can do it." I go. And then this went back and forth. I realized I'm not going to win this argument, but I do kind of want to win the battle. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you do it in San Diego, where if it goes sideways, no one will ever hear about it?" And so that's what ended up. We go down to San Diego, and she sings the national anthem. It's not going well. It's not going well.
She plugs her ears.
I was supposed to throw out the first pitch after she sang, and the guy comes up with the ball and goes, "Hey, buddy, you probably will get the hell out of here." I go, "No, no, give me that ball. You see my fat ass get out of the mound." I go, "I'm going to throw out this pitch because I'll never be allowed in a baseball stadium again as long as I live." So we get out, and we get raced right out of there to our airplane. I had an airplane then, and it's a short flight, from San Diego back to LA. And we're getting ready to take off. I look over at her, and she's weeping, like crying, weeping. And it's scary because the woman you love is weeping or crying, or you're like, "Holy I got to fix that." Because otherwise I'll never be able to read this newspaper. Like, first of all, is it my fault? Even if it's not, doesn't matter. Gotta fix it. So I go, "What's going on?" She's like, "That was so awful. People were booing and people hated me. I think it ruined my show. I think." I go, "No, was it?" "Well, it was fine. Come on, booing." I go, "They were. You don't understand. You've never been to a baseball game, Rosie. Booing is a sign of endearment. Like boo, pal." And I said, "And I did hear people cheering you. It was very brave, and I did hear people cheering. I swear to God, I heard people cheering." She goes, "Oh, okay." Then she goes, "Well, it was kind of fun." I go, "Yes, it was fun. It's never gonna happen again, but it was fun." And so while we flew to LA, the president of the United States at the time, George Herbert Walker Bush, was friends with the owner of the Padres and was watching the game live with journalists, with press people with him. And when she sang, he said, "That's a disgrace to America." That's a big deal. So, and also, it was right before Operation Desert Storm. There's a war gearing up. Terrible time to screw up national. Anyway, we landed at LAX. There's 100 of those TMZ type guys waiting for us, and we tried to get and that's back in the day. They had the metal cameras, the big metal, not the little. And man, they were on it. We're trying to make our way through the airport because the president said that. And three of them, like Rosie's, 5 foot tall. She's this way, but she's 5 foot tall. I'm 6'2". So we're making our way through, and three of the guys were especially aggressive, and were hitting her with the lens of their cameras. And at one point, she said, "Get him, honey." And I'm a husband. What am I going to do? I had to get him. So I chased him down through the terminal, down the escalator into baggage, tackle them, break their cameras, give them a little something extra. And I see Rosie coming down the escalator. Oh my God, you're my hero. That's all I ever wanted to be, just for a moment. And that would have been fine, except there was a fourth guy down there taking pictures of me, roughing up these arms. So I got arrested. I got arrested at LAX, and but I knew, I won't go to jail for a long time because they were assaulting my wife, and she will be the best witness ever. And so we get to trial, and also, and some people may know this because she's written about it, Roseanne had 27 personalities, different personalities, and only 2 of them liked me. She's written about like both of them, and like you come home back in towards the end of our marriage, you come home and you don't know who's going to be at the door. It might be Cindy that hates you, or might be the 5-year-old that loves you, whatever. And it's a very complicated thing. We spent time at Johns Hopkins Beach trying to figure out how to, deal with this, how to integrate her different personalities. But I genuinely believe that it was real. So she gets on the stand, and my lawyer's like, "Roseanne, tell this jury exactly what happened at the airport." And she was like, "I wasn't there." I can't tell you, that's it. So for 3 months, I had to put on an orange jumpsuit, and on the 405 freeway, stand on the side with like the Hillside Strangler and long
Wow.
McDonald's wrappers from 5 o'clock Friday to 5 a.m. Monday every week. It was actually kind of a relaxing, because the marriage was not going well there. So it's kind of fun to get together with the boys. But yeah, that's what happens, man. That's what happens. And then very quickly, Johnny Carson. Now, Johnny Carson was everything. You're young, but man, there was one talk show. It was Johnny Carson. Now there's 30. They're great. And so I went on Johnny Carson after it. And I was mad at the president for crashing my life. And I said a bunch of things that were probably above, they weren't that funny, you know what I mean, or mean. And the next day I saw Maria Shriver, who's Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife. She goes, "I saw you on Carson last night talking about the president. That's pretty rough." I go, "Yeah, but he doesn't watch Carson." She goes, "I bet he does." No, he doesn't care what I say about him. She goes, "I bet he does." Damn it. I said, "Do you have his address?" And she gave me a pad of paper, and I wrote, "Dear Mr. President, I know you're a public figure, but my jokes weren't funny. They were mean. And for that, I apologize." I signed off. She takes it. And then 48 hours later, a Secret Service agent came to my house, and with a handwritten freaking letter from the President of the United States that said, "Dear Tom, of course you can do jokes about me. Jerry Weintraub says you're a great guy." Jerry Weintraub's the only other Jew we knew in Hollywood, but he was very famous. "Would you join Barbara and I this weekend for dinner?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I would." And from that point on, I have that framed here. So from that point on, I never said a word about anybody in the Bush family. Even the Iraq War with George W., my friends, because I'm a liberal, would say that George W. I go, no. The Bush family are quality. Do not say anything bad about them. Cheney and Rumsfeld are monsters, but the Bush family is quality. And I do still think that they are, particularly with the political situation we got here, they did care about the country. They do. Maybe you don't agree with this or that, but at the end of the day, they would put America over their bullshit. And you miss that. So anyway.
Some outlets have, they labeled you and Roseanne as probably one of the most controversial relationships, at least during that time. And I think you even touched on it be prior that you said you've even got stabbed,
Yeah.
by her. What was it that kind of ended the relationship, or when did you know this was coming to an end?
Well, it wasn't when she stabbed me because I was like, but I think a lot of guys, if they're really honest, get stabbed by their wives or girlfriends at some point. You don't hear about it. And the idea is, okay, then you're married for 30 years. And at your 30-year anniversary, you laugh about the time that she stabbed you. I mean, that's a fun. So in this case, Jenny Craig was a legitimate diet person, had offered Roseanne and I $10 million to lose 20 pounds on Jenny Craig. And we're like, yeah, we'll do that. And they offered us all free Jenny Craig food to eat, and this is what you'll eat, and we'll do it. Now, here's the thing: we didn't know that you couldn't just lie and say I've lost 20 pounds on Jenny Craig on a commercial. It seems like you could, but there was a game show scandal in the 50s, and it's a now it's a law, federal law, that somebody, a doctor or a scientist, has to weigh you. They have to come to your house. I mean, it's humiliating, and weigh you to prove that you have lost weight. And that guy would come over and put a scale right in the floor in our living room, and we'd have to stand on it from. And I would kind of push her up to the front of, how you do, try to get less. But we were gaining weight on Jenny Craig. That's the problem. And so at one point, I said, listen, we could build a school with $10 million. This is $10 million 30 years ago, 35. I said, and also uh, we can afford to lose 20 pounds, honey. And people think we're crazy, man. Let's get it. I'll tell you what, husband wife diet 24/7. I'm your sponsor, you're my sponsor. We will tough love each other and we'll get this freaking weight off. So came into the house from the studio the first day. I walk in the kitchen. We have a big island in the kitchen, with chairs around it. And she's sitting there eating a giant bag of Jenny Craig chocolate chip cookies. And by the way, it's not unlimited diet food. We thought that too. Oh, we'll have a Jenny Craig buffet at lunch and Jenny Craig. And so I see her eating that big bag of Jenny Craig chocolate chip cookies. I'm like, screw that, man. I'm her sponsor. I'm going to give her some tough love. So I go up and grab the bag, throw it up against the wall by the trash can. Now, that apparently scared her. She had a block. There's a block of wood on our counter with 9 different knives. You see them on a lot of places. And so I that scared her. So she whips around with a knife, and I look at her like, "You're not going to stab me." Yeah, she was going to stab me. So she stabbed me right here. And so and then I thought, well, what do normal people do under these circumstances? Do they call 911? And I will say this: if you ever call 911, think about what you're saying first. Plan it, because they record it, and you will hear it on the news. So I called 911. They're like, "What's going on?" I go, "This is Tom Arnold. Rosie and I were on a diet. I'm like her sponsor. She was eating a big bag of chicken chocolate. I scared her, so it's not her fault. I came up behind her. She stabbed me, and at the end of it, the guy's like, "You need to handle that in house, in house," which we did. And so we think, okay, this is a funny story. I got my stitches. It ruined my skinny shirt. You got blood all over my brand new white Converse or whatever. And so we think it's funny. And but Jenny Craig did not think it was funny. Jenny Craig heard that on the news, and she fired us. Uh, she said that that's not the branding I was going for with the commercial. That's not. Jenny Craig, you will be so hungry you will stab your husband, Jenny Craig. But that was not what ended our relationship. That was just that's one of the things that happened. I think what ended our relationship was we both got exhausted from it, and neither of us wanted to be the bad guy that pulled the plug, and we're kind of waiting for each other. And that's not a great place for a relationship to be in, where you both know we've done everything we can, and this is not working. We want to move on, but we want you to have the privilege of filing for divorce or whatever. And but that's what happened. And we also, with the tabloids and stuff back in those days, they didn't have the internet, so they had a bunch of tabloids that millions and millions of people read every week, and we realized we could be in those anytime we want. And that's very fun, because where we grew up, she grew up in Utah, I grew up in Iowa, like the National Enquirer. Holy shit! So the fact that we can be in there and control it. But what happens is, have our own stories, be super crazy, but you really can't control it because if they put something in there that you think is funny or you like, then they're going to put something else negative. So, you've got to be able to suck it up. And, I tell my kids, if you're going to be on social media and if someone can hurt your feelings on social media, you can't be on social media because those aren't real people. So know that. So I really work the kids. I can hear what, I have a monitor on my phone to see what sites they can go to and don't go to. And I also listen to them with their buddies. My son plays Fortnite with his a-hole mouthy 11-year-old buddies, but you listen to it. And you listen to how they have relationships. And my daughter's on a completely different program. She's 9. And so that's it's a good way to parent. I'm certainly not going to say you can never be on social media because that also with these kids that they have to sneak on social media. But if I can monitor, I can also learn to be a better parent for their.
What was your first film?
My first scene in a movie was Dustin Hoffman, which is crazy. A movie called Hero. It was directed by Stephen Frears, who is amazing, the Oscar guy. And I played bartender, and I can't remember my name. I picture him somewhere, but my first moment in a movie was across from Dustin Hoffman. And he went, how some actors go like, okay, I've shot my close up. I'm going to go to my trailer, let my double have back with say, but no, he shot every scene with everybody. He stayed right there. But he would do this thing where he would do his lines in Chinese. The first time you're like, what? But it keeps you alert. Like if you're the other act, like it feels live. Like it's not some BS. And I really enjoyed him. And it's funny because he plays a guy that's like a homeless guy, that becomes a hero. It's called Hero. It's a pretty great story. But he dressed like a homeless guy. The director ended up having a heart attack because Dustin drove him so crazy. He came back to the movie and Dustin bought him a heart monitor. But Dustin would disappear and he'd go, "Where's Dustin? We're shooting." And he'd be out playing football with homeless people down in Venice Beach. That's where we're shooting. Like so crazy. They just thought, hey, there's a homeless guy playing football with us. And, he really is a really enjoyable guy.
You played in Coneheads.
Mm-hmm.
You had quite a bit of actors on there, including Chris Farley. I mean, we were talking about him. What do you think his legacy was, when he passed away?
Well, I've been in 150 movies, 4 good ones, I would say. Coneheads was fun because it's just a cameo. But my character is the only one that recognized that there was something weird with their head. Nobody acknowledged that in the movie. That's kind of the thing. And I thought, well, I'll spend a day with Chris. I met Chris Farley. He played me on Saturday Night Live, and Victoria.
And that is a lie. Our tattoo is right here.
This is not our butt, Dennis. That is not our.
So we went out to host the show, and Laura Michael said to me, "Hey, spend some time with Chris Farley because I think you guys have a lot in common." And I'd been sober for a while, and so we did have a lot in common. He's from Wisconsin, similar, growing up, and he really wanted to. He needed to get sober, so we stayed. He did my HBO specials. I had him on Roseanne. He played my brother in all my TV shows. It was great fun. I would go to Wisconsin for an Iowa versus Wisconsin football game. He'd come to Iowa City. He was best man at my wedding, second wedding, and very close. And then I was getting ready to go out and host a show by myself, and it was Chris's 3-year sober birthday. And so I called and couldn't get hold of it. Then Laura Michaels called me and said, I have bad news. He's in his office, and he's crying so loud he wants everybody to hear it. I knew he'd relapse. So, I get him on the phone, and then he goes back to rehab. This is a thing and happened. He'd be doing great. And then something would flip. And the thing is, when you're big like that, because you could be clean and sober in one day. You could look at him and go, I am not drinking or using drugs today. That feels good. But when you're 300 pounds and you look at me, you're like, this could take a while. I ate healthy today, but Jesus, how? So you can't have both things. I'd always say to Chris, you can either do drugs or you can be fat. There's just no, it's not going to work out. So it's a very hard thing. And that he would go back and forth. And, he had two sides of him. He'd go to church every day. He's like a Catholic. I'm Jewish. I don't get it. But he's like a Catholic. And would go down there to the nuns and volunteer and do this stuff. So he had that thing. And then it made him even more ashamed when he did things that were not appropriate in the Catholic Church. It's a hell of a deal. So, he, my daughter's born December 18th, and it used to be December 18th. I think it was 1997. He died, and I was doing one of my TV shows, and his brother was on my show, and we were doing a funeral scene. I swear to God. And went to my dressing room, and I got a call and said, a reporter said, "I'm sorry about Chris." And I just hung up the phone. I slammed it. And I have a brother named Chris, but I had a bad feeling. So I go over to Kevin Farley's trailer, and he's like, "Yeah, but he did it. He finally did it." So get the other brother that found him. We all get on the phone. We get David Spade on the phone. We're trying to sort through this. We get a plane, Adam Sandler, David Spade, me, and a couple other guys fly back to Chicago and or where he died, and then up to Madison, Wisconsin, where they bury him. And it was shocking, but not, it's terribly sad, shocking. But it's funny because he idolized John Belushi, and they were not the same guys. They were John Belushi, who died at 33, just like Jesus, just like Chris Farley. Like you see a lot of these rock guys die. But that made Lorne Michaels much more on top of Chris, because he said to me, "I lost John. I'm not going to lose Chris. I'm kicking him off the show before that." And he was suspended for periods of time, and then Chris would go back, But Lorne Michaels did his best, man. Like he was, and it hurt the show for Chris not to be there. It wasn't as funny without Chris there, but he'd do that because that was the right thing. So I think the year he died, he went back one more time. He was so big, out of breath, this, that, and I knew the other stuff were coming with that. He's in New York, and that's where he started heroin, for instance. But he did it all, So I had a bad feeling. He came to my set of my show. I think his brother, for the live taping. We took a picture. He and I and Michael Rosenbaum, I think, and he looked rough. He was funny, of course, but he looked rough. This right before he died. So every December 18th, when you get an anniversary or something like that, you're like, ugh, for the grace of God, go away. But my daughter was born December 18th. So in 2015. So now December 18th is something else to me completely. And I do remember Chris, but my day, I was at Disneyland December 18th all day, doing everywhere, taking her everywhere, her friend, all day, all night. There is something. So December 18th is a great day.
That's a beautiful thing, definitely. Also, you were pretty close with Robin Williams as well, weren't you?
Yes. Again, everything good you've ever heard about him is true and more. And when I worked on the kill floor of a meatpacking plant back in Iowa for 3 years after high school to save money because I wanted to go to the University of Iowa. And I felt like they have stage up there. If I could get out of this town, Ottumwa, and get up to the University of Iowa, get on that stage once, everything would be, I'd be famous in 6 months. It would be great. I'd be on Letterman in 6 weeks. And that's obviously not what happened. But my original goal was, I want to be on TV one time so the people in my hometown like me. And I can tell you, you'll be on TV 1,000 times, and not everybody's going to like you. So, Rob Williams, I was working chiseling heads. If you've never been, you don't know how meatpacking plant goes. Chiseling head, it's about 8 of us, kind of a line, and the heads are going by on stage. So it's still with the ears, everything on. You cut that part off. Chiseling heads. I had a chisel, and I was daydreaming that I was best friends with Robin Williams. This is back when Mork and Mindy was on. And I got home that night, like, I got to quit having that daydream because it's so disappointing. Because the reality is, I will never meet Robin. So 10 years later, I'm in Robin Williams' house up in San Francisco. And we're getting ready to start this movie 9 months. And all the actors are there. Robin's hosting us. Hugh Grant, Julianne Moore, Jodie Cusack, Jeff Goldblum. And at the end of the dinner, it's just Robin Williams and I sitting there. And I'm like, buddy, I've been here before. And he's like, in my house? I go, no, me, you, best friends. He's like, we're not best friends. I go, I know, but it's close enough. It's close enough to that dream. And, that's, and just loved him. He was always nice to me. And great performer. He was great in 9 months. He just done, what's the one where he played the nanny, the woman?
Miss Doubtfire?
Yeah, he done that with the same director. As a favorite of that director, did this part in our movie and played the doctor. He was quite pretty amazing. And so it's terribly sad what happened. He was part of my group. He was sober. He died. He'd had some issues, as people do, but he was dealing with a couple other things: Parkinson's and this Lewy body brain disease. And, his hard drive was messed up. A lot of people, especially where I'm from, when people commit suicide, they're like, you're going to hell. That person's going to hell. Like, why would they do that? Well, if your hard drive is messed up, and my writing partner this year, who has just had his 4th child, we were working on the scripted Queen of Meth show. Very respected guy. And all of a sudden his wife called me and said, hey, Evan walked into his bedroom our bedroom, and I tried to catch up with him. I thought he was going in there for revenge and shot himself in the head like that. I poked at him all day, and I did notice he was extra cheerful. And I think what happens with people that are suicidal, perhaps. I mean, he spent a lot of time in Iraq, by the way, with soldiers. He did this book, Generation Kill, and he embedded with the soldier. He did rough stories. He embedded with sex workers. He did it. And I realized he was so happy that day because of the broken, he knew how it was going to end. Finally, I know exactly what's going to happen today. I'm going to kill myself. So pressure's off. But Robin, it's just, this kind of stuff happens. I've had a lot of suicide in my family. My nephew, who was in the Army, got kicked out of the Army for being suicidal. Young guy, 25, and came home. And he had a lot of guns. People where I'm from have a lot of guns. And I said to my brother, his dad, you got to get his guns away. Like, he has so many guns coming home. And he's like, I can't do that. It's freedom, whatever. And I was actually headed there to take his guns, illegal, but take them from him. And he had an argument with his girlfriend one night. He's got a gun. He had 3 guns in his nightstand. And argued with her, picks a gun up, shoots himself dead, kills himself. And my thinking, I said to his dad, if he's suicidal and he has to walk down to the bridge, that's a walk. So you got to walk all the way down. I suppose that'll take 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And if you're going to jump off that bridge, okay, by the time you get there, there's a chance you will reconsider. But if you have a gun right here, there's no reconsidering. And these are, so then people in our town, there's a lot of evangelical Christians. My great grandma was a Pentecostal. My mother's side is Jewish, but there's some wild stuff that goes on there. And everybody's like, he's going to hell. He's going to hell. And they brought a lot of shame to. I knew better. First of all, Jews don't believe in hell. But second of all, he had an illness, but it brought it was a warning shot for our family. And so my sister-in-law, maybe a year and a half later, she decided she was going to kill herself. And her family was the most Christian, and she couldn't shoot herself because my nephew had done that. So my brother just bought a new 45-foot RV that they were going to travel the world. Really nice. that brother is very successful. He's got like 9 car washes, and but I'm also very aware he can be annoying because he'd be like, Tommy, she makes me my handyman dinner every day. I get a double of that. Like she'll do whatever. I come in the house, and it just you're like, yeah, this is. So she went into that brand new RV with septic cleaner, laid down on the bed of the master bedroom, and drank it. It melted her face into the. That's how she killed herself.
Mm.
So my brother found her with her, face melted off, and just awful and tragic. I do think you got to talk about these things because a lot of people hide it, and then because I've also noticed that where I'm from, I give out scholarships to the old community college I went to because it changed my life. Indian Hills Community College. I've given out a lot, hundreds, and I have people write an essay every year. Here's the theme: what was the toughest moment of your life? What was the best? Whatever. And I noticed that these people were writing essays. So many of them had their father. They were farmers. And one day, my father walked out in the field and never came back. Killed himself. There's a lot of that. You just didn't hear about it growing up because people are so ashamed. And then one of the ones I gave, she was 14, and then it was her job to run the farm. Like, so these people. So I started realizing this is a real deal. Now, my brother's story has a happy ending, which is just crazy. When he asked the top detailer from all of his car washes to come out to the RV and clean it up, get the brains off, and it was this 18-year-old woman who everybody said was bisexual, but she cleaned it up so well they started dating. They traveled the world together. He got a giant turtle tattoo on his back because it's young, and she's a skateboarder. My brother's like 50. He's skateboarding, like getting terribly injured. But it ends up going sideways. So she's like, no, I'm not. I'm a lesbian, and this is not working. But for a while, people were like, they were so mad at my brother. Why is he enjoying life? This is disgusting, But I think that the trauma, he had to figure out a way to deal with it, and then come back to the reality of it. Sort of a happy thing.
We're speaking. I'm not trying to be too deep in people passing away, but you did play in a couple movies with DMX. Cradle to the Grave, and how was that like being? That's one of my favorite all time rappers. But how was it like shooting a few movies with DMX?
It was great. It was great. My kids like DMX in the movies. He's a great guy. It was a Cradle to the Grave and excellence. And just it was like he's like a kid, The worst thing that he would do, for movie making, like when the first movie, excellence, it was like, hey, we're making a movie here. Let's have fun, and then let's start making a movie. So he would bring his remote control cars, his RC cars, to the set and play with them and just be outside of his trailer play. And they're loud. When you're filming a movie, you want it to be quiet. And or he would adopt another dog on the way to the set, another pit bull, and that dog would be barking so loud. But I loved him. I enjoyed him. The first one had Steven Seagal. My trailer was between DMX and Steven Seagal. And Steven Seagal's an interesting guy, to say the least. And he would be in there with his slide guitar and played his music. And then DMX's music was bananas. I enjoyed that. Now, DMX didn't dislike Steven Seagal, but Steven Seagal was intimidated by DMX and how he just didn't care. But he did a great job. That group of people, same thing with that second movie, we had Jet Li instead of Steven Seagal and Jet Li, I think the X and me were in love with Jet Li because Jet Li's a real deal. Like Steven Seagal at that time, he could not do his early stuff. He could do all it, but he would lift his leg for a kick, and then another guy would run in and finish it for the shot. But Jet Li could do it all. Like he's this tall, Jet Li. His hands are that big, and he can beat the shit out of everybody. Everybody there. So even the MMA guys are like so honored. And this guy went for it, and we really enjoyed that. It was one time where everybody was like, shit, Jet Li is doing this movie with us, man. This is wild. So that was a lot of fun too. And but yeah, I'm sorry that X died. You know, he had an interesting personal life, but he was definitely a sweet guy, a very talented. You know, he could have done a lot more things again.
I seen on Saturday Night Live another goal of mine at least is Tupac. You were able to I think you even said, "Hey, we should hang out" or something like that
Yeah.
too.
Well, here's the thing. My son, my 11-year-old son, when I'll walk into my own house and he's playing Fortnite with his buddies. I go, "Hey, son," he goes, "Shh, Dad, please. I don't want my buddies to hear you." Oh, okay. All right, asshole. All right. That's how it's going to be. I go in the kitchen, I'm doing my thing. A little while later, he comes in. His friends have seen me and Tupac, or me and Snoop Dogg or whatever. They realize who I am, and he's like, "Daddy, will you say hi to my friends?" I'm like, "Screw your friends, man. It's either all in or not, or nothing." I've had too many relationships where there's been in and out, and I'm not doing that with my kid. But yeah, he was obviously he's a very cool guy. Uh, uh, we had to spend time together that week because you're acting, you're doing this stuff. I really enjoy it. He's very funny. Tupac and Prince, who I did spend a lot of time with. Very funny guys. Very sweet, very funny. Funnier than you think they would. He's also great to everybody on the show. It was a big deal. We were waiting for Snoop Dogg, who was on trial for murder. And the thinking was if the trial ends by Friday, we could get him out. They could do a duel. It'll be a big thing. But the trial went over a little bit. And so we didn't have Snoop Dogg. But afterwards, there's always a notorious party after the show where everybody goes, and everybody goes all night. And Suge Knight was with Tupac, and he's sitting over here, table next to mine. And Suge Knight's, he's a troublemaker, big dude. He's like, "Hey, where's Roseanne?" To me, this after Roseanne. I go, "She's in the trunk of my car. Why? You want to like her?" And Tupac that was the best thing he'd ever heard. And even in Suge Knight, we were friendly after that because my sports show. But Tupac, man, what a sweet guy, and so talented, but just a sweetheart. He's in on the joke. But yeah, very, very sad.
Well, before I let you go, I got two more, topics I got to hit on the head. And obviously one we can't let you go without talking about, True Lies. That you think that movie probably had the most impact, at least upcoming for your career?
Well, yeah. It was the first real movie I'd done. I'd done the things with Dustin Hoffman and a couple TV movies, and then worked with a couple other directors that were good, but the roles were supporting roles, smaller. But True Lies, I knew it was going to be a big movie, and I knew that I had no shot to be in it because real actors were auditioning for the part that I got around town. There was a lot of talk about it. It's a James Cameron movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Curtis, shit. So I got a call from my agent. At the time, it was called William Morris, Roseanne and I's agent. And he said, "James Cameron wants to meet with you for the movie True Lies." And I was like, "That's bullshit. It's a mercy meeting. There's no way." And it was a mercy meeting because William Morris had called James Cameron and said, "We do a lot of business with you. We're afraid Tom and Roseanne are leaving our agency. So we got to get this thing for Tom. You don't have to cast him. We know you won't, but please just meet with him." So I was like, "I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do the murder." But then I thought, well, I want to meet James Cameron. How in the hell will I ever meet James Cameron? This is it. So I go to the meeting. James Cameron is very nice, very cool. And we shoot the shit a little bit. And then he's like, "Okay, do the scene, do the audition scene." I was like, I got to be honest, I didn't even read it because I know I'm not getting it. It seems like it would hurt less if I didn't even try, which is a lesson I try to teach my kids. And he's like, he goes, "Well, it's 3 pages. Just read it for me." I go, "Okay." I read this 3-page scene. And then I see him go, "Oh, okay." And then he goes, "Get Arnold down here." I didn't know Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the loft, part of the office the whole time. And I'm like, holy hell. And we see him walking down the stairs, and it's freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger. You gotta be shitting me. And James Cameron said he cast me in a movie because when we were watching Arnold walk down the stairs, I said, I can take you. You know, that's what the guy said. You look at him, same height, I hit him low. And then Arnold came out, we did that scene one time together, and the chemistry was so great that Jim Cameron's like, you got the movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. But don't tell anyone for 2 weeks. And I was like, I swear to God, I won't tell anyone the best news of my life for 2 weeks. Right now, I'm going to go out to my car and call everyone I know, which I did. And nobody believed me. My own wife thought I was back on drugs. And so that night, again, when I'm looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, why would he ask me to wait 2 weeks? Maybe that didn't happen. Maybe I'm crazy. And the reason he asked me to wait 2 weeks, he did not tell me till after the movie came out because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. But Jim Cameron had to go from that meeting over to the Fox Tower and meet the CEO and all the chairmen and give them the great news. And he came in there. He's like, great news. By the way, True Lies was the most expensive movie ever made at the time. First movie cost over $100 million. So there's a lot on the line for my character, my role, the whole movie. So he goes and meets them. He goes, great news. We can start filming True Lies. I found the third guy after Arnold, Jamie Lee. And they're like, that's fantastic news, Jim Cameron. Who is it? And he's like, it's Tom Arnold. They're like, that is horrible news, Jim Cameron. And he's like, why do you say that? And they say, well, don't you read the tabloids? Like, he's a crazy person. And Jim Cameron's like, no, I don't read tabloids. But I wrote this movie, and he's the guy. And they're like, well, we're very sorry, Jim. We cannot approve Tom Arnold for this movie. And then Jim Cameron's like, yeah, actually, I'm the one that's sorry. Because I wanted to make the movie here at Fox, and now I'm going to go down the street and make it an effing Paramount. And they were like, okay, we'll give him a chance. We'll give him a kind of a probation. One day, anyway, so I didn't know any of this. And then every day the Fox executives would come to the set, and I'd be hugging them. Thanks for choosing me. Thanks for picking me. So now, this movie was also super important because in 1994, Roseanne in April filed, well, we've been off and on, but filed for divorce. And as soon as she filed for divorce, obviously I lost my job. Everybody in our business said he will never work again. He has no talent. He rode the coattails. He's going to be back in Iowa in 2 weeks. I remember thinking, that's probably true. But when I go back to Iowa, I will tell my grandkids that I worked on one of the best shows of television ever for 6 years. That's a pretty good story to tell. And Jim Cameron and Arnold were like, F those people, man. The movie comes out in 2 months. It'll change everything. And I was like, I want to believe you guys. But it really did. Because before a movie comes out, they do test screenings. And they get like 200 people in a theater. They don't know what they're going to watch. They give them cards to fill out. And so they're in there, and all of a sudden the screen lights up. A James Cameron movie, yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah. Tom Arnold, boo. People booed. That's where I was. But at the end of the movie, they fill out the cards, like, who was the best character? Who would you like? And it was all me. It was my character, the character I played in that movie. So in 2 hours, in a movie, they went from not knowing me, hating me, to still not knowing me and thinking he might be a good guy. He was great in the movie. So that's kind of how that went. And that, I was just lucky. Right place, right time. I was also lucky. The movie took 7 months to film. And if you've ever been divorced, the last year of the marriage before you get divorced is unpleasant. But otherwise, you still be married, right? And so, and so I got to travel all over the United States, all these different places filming. And it was a great diversion for me. And filmed with these fun people. And then the movie came out. It's a huge hit. And everybody stayed friends. We're still friends. I remember thinking, I bet that's how all movies are. This will be fun. And it turns out no movies are like that. But I'm so grateful for that. In the Arnold-Dice relationship, the first thing I learned from him is you got to give back. You got to be of service. You have this, you focus on your career, your acting career, whatever. But you also got to focus on what you're doing to make the world better. So the same amount of focus on charity stuff. And so just the stuff that we have done all these years, we give out 10,000 gifts at Christmas down in South Central, 2,000 turkeys and dinners. Thanksgiving. A lot of fun. There's a after school program he started. I forget how many years ago, but we've raised $1.5 billion for after school programs
Nice.
in at-risk areas. Like the kids and then the kids will come to our fundraiser at Arnold, and these kids will come. They're not kids anymore. They're like grown men and women who have become cops or become doctors. I mean, you see that change, and I think that's probably the most satisfying thing for him too to do that. And it reminds me of when somebody plays my kid in a movie, they're always a kid. Whenever I see them, they're that kid. And I've had people like Rachel Lee Cook. I did carpool with her, and she was a teenager. She was like, and at one point she's like, "Will you stop making fun of my dad's socks?" And her dad wore very nice black socks with shorts. So my dad did. Okay, I will. And then we did a movie called The Final Season, a baseball movie. It's pretty good. And I was talking to her on the set, and she's like, "Tom, I'm not a kid. I have kids." I'm like, "How is that possible? How is that possible?" But kids are frozen in time when they play your kids. And for my kids, when they first started watching things I'm in, like I'd have kids, I'd have other wives, I'd have this other, and so I'd have to talk to them. Listen, you guys are my only kids. You guys are the only thing that really, really matters to me. And because it's a little shocking to see, you have kids or a woman who's kissing you. It's not because they saw their mom and I kissing. I've never even seen their mom and I hug. But it's good for them to know that. And another thing I learned was there were movies I did where I'm on the set, like one called Camp Fred 3. And I remember filming it. I think John Cena was in it. A buddy of mine directed it. It's about camp. And I was like, this is the stupidest piece of crap. This is humiliating. Why are we doing this? I play Camp I Want to Pee was in Camp. And I played Floyd, Camp, whatever. This is awful. And when my daughter was about 2 or 3, she saw it. And she's loved it. And in fact, she would go to her mom's house for the weekend and make her mom and watch it for her mom. And just be that was very satisfying. But you think that's why I'll never say, well, what movie do you like the most? I mean, or what movie do you hate? Because if you say, I hated this movie, you got to remember there's 100 people that worked on that movie. And there's people that's the best thing they ever did. So I'm not going to insult them, And I've taken, as you can see, I've done a lot of different kinds of movies.
You had Medea's Witness Protection, which I wanted to ask, was that shot on Tyler Perry's at his studio with the big acres and all that?
Well, they called and asked me if I do. I wanted to meet Tyler Perry, see how he worked. So, I went down there for a day. They did shoot it at a studio. We shot in Atlanta, but my part was in a high rise. And the funniest thing happened. Tyler's directing. He really does direct it. But he's dressed as Medea. It's for the next scene. And I think we were on the 18th floor of the building. And something screwed up down on the street. They're shooting something down the street. And he took the elevator as Medea and just went and chewed ass to the crew because they screwed up. And it was, I loved it. I just said, that's wild. That is, so it was fun. And Eugene Levy was in there, who I known a long time. And, it was a very fun experience. He provided Krispy Kreme donuts for everybody. People, you judge, what's in your trailer? Jeez. Boy, he hit the spot here, Perry. But he's a very good, and he's got his character, but he's got the director guy that's the boss. And to see the difference, he's not mean to people. He's just like professional, but to be yelled at by him and Medea was just so funny to me to observe. But I'll tell you, his crews stay with him. They like same as Jim Cameron. People say James Cameron is rough with people. Well, he's very good with the actors, but as the movie goes on, James Cameron movie, it goes over budget and overtime. Everyone, and then he puts his own money back in the movie, so everything is on the line. And he has done every job. He knows how to light sets. He's done that. He knows how to distress a dresser. He started out his career doing. He's done everybody's job. So if he is bad, he will it's because he knows he can do it. He will climb a ladder and do a job. And one of the camera operators, because they wanted to pee, and we were filming out wherever they were doing another take first. They just packed up his camera and left, and which was pretty funny to me. But he came back for the next movie. So working with James Cameron is a huge honor. I feel the same way about Roseanne show when people are like complaining about how the writers were treated or whatever. I was pretty. I kept the writers pretty insulated, but she wanted it to be good. She wanted things to be good, and then when I hear her complain all these years later, I'm like, you worked on this show with this. Maybe she's crazy, but that's a great story. Like the people that worked on the Sid Caesar show, your show shows, the original shows, or on The Honeymooners, the writer. They got treated. The stuff that the stars of those shows did to them, they'd light the script on fire. They'd throw, those are great stories later on. And a lot of great writers started on those shows, the tough shows, as well as Roseanne. There's people that's gone on that I'd hired that have won Oscars and Emmys and had their own shows that become incredibly wealthy because of that original experience. Norm Macdonald, I got him, and then he said his dream was to be the weekend update guy on Saturday Night Live. He was on Saturday Night Live. And then he got an opportunity to do that. And the other producers I worked with said, we're not letting him out of his contract. I'm like, we are letting him out of his contract. Everybody has a dream. And everybody gets to leave. Not just, if it was a job on another show we were competing, I'd say no. But this is his dream job. So he got out and got the opportunity to do that. So that's what happened.
And one more thing I want to touch on is obviously the Best Damn Sports Show. You and Michael Strahan had a nice April Fool's segment on there. It just sounded like you guys had a lot of fun. I know you covered the Shaquille O'Neal back when he was traded to the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
And
Shaq was like next door neighbor the whole time he played for the Lakers. And what a great guy. 8 years. And great neighbor. He got away with a lot of shit that other people did. We had a homeowner association, and you weren't supposed to put up lights or whatever. And he had the big Superman S lit up. But it was also the last time, because when I grew up in Iowa, and the Iowa Hawkeyes, we didn't have professional sports. We really cared about the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I remember there'd be an Iowa game on, and they'd win, and you would just walk out of your house into your street, and your other neighbors would come out of their houses, and you would talk about the game. Like you knew everybody was on. Same way with the Lakers. And we lived in a fancy neighborhood back in the day. But it was the only time in LA where I'd walk out of my house, we had a cul-de-sac, and the other neighbors would all come out. They'd won a road game at Sacramento, they'd come back from whatever. And it was that bond that you have that sports could do that for you. So, I think I started the Best Damn Sports Show period. Somebody came to me at an NFL fundraiser, said, we want to do this show. You, comedian, baseball guy, John Kruk, Michael Irvin, football, and John Sally, basketball, John. And we do it. And I thought it would maybe last 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, let's go see. Why don't we do a practice one? I knew I liked John Kruk from from Letterman. And it was so different, and we got away with so much that you could see it at other shows now, where all of a sudden the show will be like, and now we have a court. We're doing a judge, jury, whatever. The stuff that we did on that show. The actors, Serena Williams would come on and not want to talk about tennis. We'd act together. We did The Godfather. We just did crazy stuff. And I never, I didn't have to be an expert. I was a fan. I was the voice of the fan. So if they wanted me to criticize somebody, even Lance Armstrong, I go, I'm not going to do that. I'll ask him if he cheated, but I'm just going to take his word. Same with Pete Rose. I am not that guy. And I'm a Chicago Cubs fan forever. Sammy Sosa, come on. I love you, Sammy Sosa. Michael Strahan, I am a Giants fan, which sucks most years. But so for the time he was a rookie, I knew him. And there are guys, not every athlete can cross over to broadcast. They've done this one great thing. And a lot of times it's not the superstars that are able to cross them. It's the guys, the everyday players, whatever, regular. They could be self-effacing. But Michael Strahan, I knew had the thing. So he started practicing on our show. He'd fill in for Michael Irvin or whatever. He'd be a football guy, and I just knew he had it. So in 2006, I was doing something else, and the producers called, said, it's going to be April Fool's. We want to do an April Fool's joke. And we want to, on Michael Strahan. And I hate April Fool's jokes because they're usually bullshit. You usually know, you can tell. And so what they asked me to do, they said, we've got a book. We've created a book with your face. And allegedly you've written about the show, your years on the show, and you've trashed people. And you've written all the backseat stage stuff, the intimate stuff. And what we're going to do is have you talk about the book until everybody gets super mad. And then Chris Rose, who was our host, who's amazing, would call, okay, it's a joke. I go, oh, okay, I'll do that.
His new autobiography, True Lies, is due out this summer. Please welcome back our good friend, Tom.
So I wrote it, and I got put the gossip in there that they like, and the stories and the weird stuff.
You need the money that bad to put Rodney and I in your book?
Well, it's an honor to be in my book, Dib.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So, but I called Michael. I said, I want you to hear what's going to go on. And I said, I want you to help me. I am going to trash you so hard. I'll trash the other guys, whatever. And then we'll, you'll be in on the joke, and it's really a joke on the producers and the director of the show. And he was so good. First of all, the other guys, like, how dare you? Like, they were very offended. I wrote a book about this stuff that happened behind the scenes, stuff I'd heard. And then then Michael, and I allegedly written about him and what's the running back, Tiki Barber, who had issues with the Giants, had issues with Michael.
And I also got great quotes in there from Tiki about you.
Tiki Barber, right?
Tiki Barber.
Like what?
Not a team player. Okay. That you got $2 million per sack.
And so we start arguing. I'm looking at him, and we really start arguing about T. How dare you? And he's pointing his finger. And I look at Chris Rose, he's getting scared, like he's going to call it because he thinks, oh, I've got Michael. And so Michael's so good. Eventually I had to put my finger, I think, in his face to get him to, like, it was going on. I was afraid he was going to. And then he gets up, and I allegedly, it's a scrum. He ends up down on the ground. Rob Dibble, who's on the show, and Rodney Pete, who weigh 300 pounds each. Anyway, they try to break it up. They get on top, and then Michael Strahan, who just got back from a injury, the pec injury where it's torn, just got back on the team. And I have to say, my buddy owns the Giants, Steve Tisch. I did not tell him this could happen. So this is a Friday night. Michael goes down. He's like, my show, I ripped it again. And Chris Rose panics, and the director goes, fade to black. Tom has finally ruined the show. So that's what people saw on the East Coast, including the Giants. And but they kept the camera rolling, and Michael jumped up the end. April Fools.
You said it to me.
You get to figure out how to say it.
If you had said that.
Sell the book. Oh. Hold on.
Get up. April Fool!
They didn't see that part at first. So people were so worried with the Giants. And then the next Monday, I went back and played the part, April Fool. But he was so good. It's real. Like, April Fool's jokes a lot of times are BS. It was 100% real, and it's because Michael Strahan was so good. And I see Michael posts it every April Fool's Day. But it actually worked, because my thing is really like, how can we make this authentic, And so that was good. So I love, the sports show. I love getting paid to talk about sports. Can you imagine sitting there?
Oh, yeah.
Heroes, Willie Mays, 30 bags, throwing passes with Joe Montana, doing all this crazy stuff. It was such an honor. And this last summer at the Fanatics convention, Fanatics is a autograph thing and whatever. And so Tom Brady was there, like Travis Scott, who my kids love, doing this thing. And they had a reunion of the Best Damn Sports Show period, 20 years from when we started. So it was just very cool. And we'd like to do more episodes, maybe digitally via Fanatics or whatever, Fanatics at Fox. But it was so great to see everybody. And we started right back where we were. Michael started right back where we were. And CeCe Sabathia was our baseball guy for that. Amazing. And then Stephen A. Smith, who started on the SS Sports Show, came on. And so there was that. Jalen Rose, who was probably one of my favorites, basketball guy, really solid human being too. So it just picked up where it left off. It's in front of this live crowd, and it was fun. And if nothing ever happens, I'm grateful that we got to do that. So it was a lot of fun, that show.
Did you see the now I think about it, did you see the Roseanne rap that she put out a couple of days ago with rapper Tom McDonald?
No, I don't know who that rapper is.
I barely know of him either, but I know it's kind of going viral.
Yeah, freaking Trump. Roseanne hated Trump when we were together. We did a special at his casino, HBO special, 1989, 1990. And he was just fun. He's like Donald Trump. And so he's like, I got an idea. I got a friend that has a $3 million car, a Duesenberg or something, one of those old. And I will bring that up here to the Atlantic City and drive that car on. And Roseanne will be back. I'll be her limo driver. And then I was like, oh, that's funny. Now he's in the show. But that's funny. It was funny then. And, that's Donald Trump. He doesn't. But like a month later, HBO called and said, hey, the guy, the farmer that boxed that car up in southern New Jersey and drove that all the way to Atlantic City was promised $30,000 by Donald Trump, and he never got paid. And I'm like, that's another hilarious Donald Trump story. I'll pay it. So we knew him a little bit socially. Roseanne was not a fan. And he would come on my sports show too and different things. But then for me, when he started the birther stuff, I'm like, that's just unacceptable for demanding Barack Obama, the first black president, birth certificate. This guy might be a fraternity where the a-holes are, being mean to. And I said, this is in 2011, I called up Mark Burnett and NBC. I go, what are you guys doing about this? And because this is, if he was, and I'm speaking as a Jew, if the first Jewish president, if Donald Trump said, I demand to see your birth certificate, Donald Trump would never be on television. And unfortunately, we all didn't stick together, which is what we have to do. So that was Andy was asking me to be on the Celebrity Apprentice. I needed the money, but I didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, in 2017 or something, I had a special, about comedy special, 2018. And I was getting ready to promote it, but Roseanne's a big fan of Trump. That's easy possible. Then I read her social media, and it's bananas. It's not just Trump. She'd written the letters to every member of Congress saying that John McCain was a traitor. A guy that lived in a 3-foot bamboo box for 5.5 years as a prisoner of war and would not leave. He could have left early because his dad was an admiral. He didn't leave till the other guys came out. And I was like, that should be, she shouldn't be allowed to be on TV. She said the Boston bomber was a false flag thing. So, but she was coming back on the show. Then Hollywood Reporter asked me to review the pilot episode of the new set. And I gave a good review. I said, it's not the same, and I think the original show ran its course. I really do. I think the first 6 years when I was on it, it was very good. That's what I think. But also every show runs their course. There's a certain, and I think that show had gotten canceled after the 9th season. I left this. John Goodman was not even on the show the 9th season. He was dead or whatever on the show. Like they'd had issues. So I liked the show. I liked the Wanda Sykes and what's her name, Whitney Cummings and writers, and wrote good things about it. It came out, number one, it's huge. And I was thinking this stuff's going to catch up with her if she keeps tweeting it.
Yep.
She couldn't help herself. The end of the first season, and I know her enough. I don't know. It's been a long time, but I know her enough that it's coming back for a second season. And the weekend before the writers came back for season 2, she was in a turmoil because she'd promised all the Trump people it's going to be all Trump, and then she promised the Democrats it's not going to be political. Yes. So she had two. She could. There's no way she could service both of those things. So the weekend before, she was tweeting some crazy stuff, and she had a picture of Chelsea Clinton next to a donkey, and I wrote the daughter. I said, "She got to take that down, man. How would she feel if somebody did that with her children, those kids?" And then she just escalated and did the Planet of the Apes thing, which is, and I wrote down, like, there are so many. Maybe I have no idea how that's hilarious. Where she could play paired Valerie Jarrett to this to Milo Planet of the Apes. I said, but every kid, every black kid, has had to deal with that bullshit. Anyway, that's got to go. And then they fired her, and I was very proud of Bob Iger, who obviously I'd known since the show first started, because they were going to lose a lot of money. They're losing a lot of money by firing her. She lost a lot of money by firing her. And at first she's like, she said, "Oh, I didn't know that the monkey and the black woman would be offensive for her." And because she developed these fans that are straight up racist. You can see on the social media at QAnon, and the literal Nazis were like giving her the juice that she needed. Then she blamed Ambien, but that's just it was the right thing to do. And then I'm doing my interviews, my special. Of course, they're asking me about that before they ask about my special, and I say, yeah, that is racist. There's no that's just 100%, and that's not who I knew, but that's who she is now. And so, she kind of went down one of many rabbit holes. And by the way, when the show was on and she was tweeting, my old stepdaughter, I said, "Hey, you got to get her phone away from her." I will tell you that if that was happening when I was around, she wouldn't have had her phone. I would have thrown her in the river or something. I said, excuse me, I sent her information on a phone that you can tweet something. It goes to a different server, so somebody can check that shit out before it goes up for everybody. I said, you got to use this phone. She just can't tweet, because when I was with her, she always wanted to quit the show. And we'd be coming into work and she'd get mad. And I'm quitting. I go, "You can't quit the show. You'll be too sad." No, and she'd kick in my stereo or whatever, and always wanted to quit. And then one time she's like, "I'm not getting respect from writers. People don't respect me. I'm quitting." And we went up to the Tom Warner, who's the executive producer with me, who really owned the show. He owned the Padres. He owned the Boston Red Sox. He owned the Liverpool soccer team. Very successful, wealthy guy. We went into his office and she said, "I'm quitting the show. Okay, nobody respects me. Can you give me one good reason to stay on this show?" And he's like, "I'll give you 100 million good reasons." And she was like, "Look at me. Oh, shit, that's a lot." Yeah, that is a lot. And she was good after that. But I knew if she quit the show, she would be so sad because it's her show. She created it. She never got credit for creating it, but it's all hers. And I knew that there'd be a time. So it's in a marriage, that's not helpful when you're, spending so much time trying to keep somebody, on track, because you know that it would devastate them at the end. So that's what happened. And she lost another 50 million when she got fired from the show. And and then kind of went down a rabbit hole, and now she's back with her music. People send me stuff or tag me on when she does stuff, and once in a while I'll try to make a funny comment about it, but I can't quite keep up with it. And any rapper from MAGA is not good.
I think she even dissed Eminem in the song or something, so.
Yeah, Larry, the MAGA people hate a lot of talented people because they aren't 100% in line with, which is really sad. There's And the people on the left, like they want to, they're boycotting Chick-fil-A. And people are you going to boycott Chick-fil-A? I'm like, hell no, I'm not boycotting. They're delicious. And there's a song this Lee Greenwood has called "Proud to Be an American," and people are like, "You that song?" Nobody. I go, "No, I like that song. I've always liked that song." By the time he came out with it 30 years ago or whatever, it's always kind of got. So I don't care that they like that song. I have seen people like Amber Rose, who's a very good friend of mine. She was married to Wiz Khalifa, and she was with Kanye and various people. But they had a kid together. Her Wiz is my son's age. So we had homeschool. We had a mobile classroom in the house. 6 kids, 2 teachers. It was a great way to get the kids going. And then their son Bash is great, and she was great. And we became friends. And she's very outspoken, and talks about sex stuff. I do her podcast, she'd do mine. We were generally friends. And she came over to the house with her family, and But then I saw that she decided, and she had this thing called Slut Walk, which was very a big deal about not shaming women. I think she was a stripper. She started her career that way and didn't want to shame other people, and it's a big deal. So very pro woman, very pro gay, pro all of those things, and then to also go, I'm here for Trump. I saw her at the convention. I'm like, wow. I said, I'm not going to call her and try to shame her, but I hope she comes around, because there's just too many things. If you're women's rights or women's body autonomy, you can't be with Trump. She made that big change, and she looked good at the convention. But I think there are people, Roseanne, there are people that go, I'm not getting the juice I used to get from whatever, and I'm getting a lot of love from this other thing. So that's going to be my thing. And it's probably subconscious. But then you start, you make bargains with the devil, and more bargains with the devil. And because there is a price to make. Nobody, in my opinion, comes out of the MAGA thing unscathed except Trump. Nobody, and I do know him very well. And I've been to the Playboy Mansion with him. And he, back in the day, he gave us a sports show to promote The Apprentice. He's like, and he did a thing. I can see why people like him, because he does the thing like right when the interview first started. He said, I just want to say I'm here for Tom Arnold. It kind of gives you a tickle, like, wow, that's so great.
Right.
Even with Rosie O'Donnell, when he called her a big fat pig, I reached out to Roseanne, like, she's our friend, man. And Roseanne's like, well, he didn't call me a big fat pig. So they make those deals. I do know, he said, come to Playboy Mansion with me. I've got a new vodka or tequila. We're having a party. So I rode over there with him. He said, I want you to meet my new girlfriend. She's Playmate of the Year. I'm like, okay. And we meet her. She's Karen McDougal. Has the buddy stuff. Very beautiful. Very into him. And he's into her. And then he's like, oh, Melania's here. And my daughter, let's all take a picture together. The girlfriend, Melania, the daughter, me. And I was like, oh my God, this guy does not care. Which is fine when he's just being Donald Trump. But if he's in charge of the country, that's going to be a problem. So, because he doesn't care. It seems like he cares that you can suck up to him and get something, but then he's going to cut. Eventually he does. I don't like suck ups. You're out. So people make a lot of deals to do that and sell themselves out. And, you just try to hold on as long as you can.
Well, I'm glad, man, you're doing all right. I want to thank you for even, joining the podcast. I know you got the Divorce Party podcast. Is that?
We have been doing that for a year, but then my partner in it, Monica Casey, who's wonderful, got back with her husband. Her husband's this guy from Candid. They'd had a rough divorce. And that's when I first met her outside of school, picking up our kids. And I said, hey, and I never even had coffee. I haven't had a real date in 8 years. But I said, let's have coffee and talk about our terrible divorces. And we did. Then we started a podcast. And then her husband, because she saw him, the divorce was rough, but then she saw him after that, co-parenting, and she saw what he was really about. And she's like, okay, we could do that. We've been through a divorce. And I tell people, get divorced before you get married, because until you divorce someone, you don't know what they're really about. Like they may want to murder you. Then you get married. So I'm so happy for her. You know, they don't live together, but they have this great daughter together, but we'll do more because there's a lot of people that want to talk about.
Okay.
It. Well, keep up the great work, and we'll see you down the road, buddy.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, have a good one.
All right, you too, man.
24/7, 12 months a year, 365. 65.